At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. All right. Happy Friday. I've got your stuff ready for you to pick up on Monday. And if the last, not the last quiz that you did, but the last quiz that you turned in, if it's not in your packet, that means you made 100, but you would know that by now because that's in GradeLink. If you didn't make 100 on the last quiz that you turned in, obviously not the last quiz that you did because you haven't turned that in yet, then I put it back in this packet for you to correct if you want to, okay? But it has to come back to me either way, okay? Whether you correct it or not, it has to get back in my possession. So you may find a completed quiz that is available for correcting, but you're going to find two quizzes, okay? So we're going to do a quiz on Monday and a quiz on Thursday next week and try to get all those done so you can get them turned in. There was something else I was going to say. I lost it. So we won't have class on Monday because you have a quiz, and I'm going to go over it today. But I don't know if we'll have time on Wednesday to go over Thursday's quiz, so we may meet Thursday morning to kind of go over the quiz. I'll let you know, you'll know by Wednesday. So anyway, so here's what you need to make sure that you know for your quiz. The quiz that you're going to do on Monday is going to be over section 8.3, okay? So my encouragement to you on this quiz is read very carefully, okay? Take your time, read your instructions very, very carefully. Pay attention to instructions on rounding, okay? That's how you'll know what to round to. That's what the instructions are there for. So just really take your time. These quizzes aren't long. You know, they're never long. They're usually 8 to 10 problems. So there's no rush, you know. So just take your time, be thorough, be diligent, pay attention to detail. So again, I'm going to reiterate this again. When you're looking for the measurement of an angle, when you're looking for the degrees, okay? Or when you have a problem that says find theta, that means you're finding the angle, okay? That's when you shift on your calculator, okay? That's when you use the inverse function, okay? So anytime I'm looking for an angle, I'm looking for a degree, I'm looking for theta, shift whatever your trig function is, okay? And then you're going to have to be able to tell from some given information what is, I mean, by now you should have memorized sine, cosine, and tangent, okay? So you're going to have to decide, you know, based on this information, if I was looking for this angle, would I use sine, would I use cosine, would I use tangent? Okay, but you should be very familiar with all of that at this point. So you should do fine. So that'll just cover Monday's quiz, okay? So let's talk about this review. So this is your assignment that you have on your sheet. You're going to do this review, and then I just gave you a heads up about that quiz on Monday. So some of this stuff on this review we haven't done in quite some time. So let me just go ahead and tell you the first two problems. Once we start working through one, you'll go, oh, I remember doing that. But that goes all the way back to section 3.1. Okay, so if the review that I give you here on the board is not adequate enough, go back to section 3.1, and that's where you're going to find all of the steps. If what we're about to do just doesn't quite cut it for you, you'll kind of have a point of reference. So let's work on number one together. These are the problems that would take you like a whole page to do, okay? And it's not that they're extremely difficult by any means, but this just got a lot of steps to it. So number one. So we are given this polynomial. All right. So you are told to solve each polynomial equation. So I'm looking for x, okay? So we have to do a type of factoring, but mercy me, we have like, what, 5 or 6 terms here, okay? So the first thing that you would always want to do, let's just make sure that every exponent is represented, that it's present. I don't have any gaps, all right? So I've got x to the 4th, x cubed, x squared, x, and then my whole number. Okay, so we're good to go, all right? So these were the problems that we did where we had to factor, keep factoring, keep factoring, keep factoring, keep factoring. We oftentimes ended up with like 4 different solutions for equations of this size. So this is where we had to, our first step was to find all the possible zeros. Okay, hopefully that rings a bell. So what the term that we go to is this guy here in the constant, all right? And we start looking at his factors, okay? So factors, all the factors of 24. So we're going to list them over here. So I've got 1 and 24, and I've got 2 and 12, and I've got 3 and 8, and I've got 4 and 6. Okay, so these multiply, these multiply, these multiply. Okay, and also I have pluses and minuses of each one, because two negatives make a positive also. Okay, so these were the problems where I would ask you, okay, which one do you want to try? Because I mean, it's just trial and error. Which one do you want to try? Which one do you want to try? Most of the time, we all started at 1. Okay, so let's try to factor out, let's try a 1 here. Okay, so we do the little box over here, and we're going to try a 1. Okay, we have all of these. We have like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We have like 16 numbers to choose from. So, okay, so then we're going to use synthetic division and see if we end on a 0. Okay, so let's list all of these factors so that we can use synthetic division. Okay, so this, his coefficient is a 1, and then I've got a -2 and a -13 and a +14 and a 24. Okay, so we're going to do synthetic division, trying, we're just trying, we're trying a +1. Okay, so hopefully you guys remember how to do this. It's very, very simple. So you pull down the first one. 1 times 1 is 1. Combine, they combine to a -1. 1 times -1 is a -1. They combine to a -14. I know you guys know how to do this. That's why I'm going so fast. 1 times -14 is a -14. And then these combine to a 0. 1 times 0 is 0. Those combine to a 24. This is a no-go, right? This is not a 0. This has to be a 0 in order for this to be a factor. And it's not. So that doesn't work, all right? So I know you guys remember this, and so then I would just ask, like, okay, where do you want to go next? We could go over the -1. We could go up to the 2. You know, you just have to figure it out. So let's just try 2. Let's try a 2. Let's see if that works. Okay, so we're going to try to factor out that 2. All right, so I shouldn't have erased those numbers. It's not like the coefficients are going to change. That was a waste. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so you just pull the first one down always. 2 times 1 is 2. They combine to a 0. 2 times 0 is 0. It's a -13. This times this would be a -26. And, oof, that would be, what would that be? I don't have my calculator. I don't want to do this wrong. I ought to be able to do this in my head. Ooh, hello. I can't see. Is that right? I think something's wrong. No, that's not. Okay, we're good. We're good. That's a -12. Okay, 2 times -12 is a -24. Okay, that does turn into a 0. Okay, so here's an important thing that I need to make sure that you remember. All right, so the 2 works, okay? But when we put this up here as something that's being factored out, we always have to change the sign, okay? So this, I'm just going to have to squeeze it up in here, would look like this, okay? Because remember, if, ignoring all of this, okay, if you were given this polynomial and you were told to factor out this, you would know to change your signs, that you would, instead of using a -2, you would put a +2 in our little box there, okay? So we used to work from this way to this way at the very beginning, okay? But when we're going back this way, remember that you have to change your sign, okay? I'm sure you guys remember that. Just kind of a little refresher there, okay? So now we got to try something else. So now we have to put down what we have left. Okay, once we factor out an x minus 2, this is what we have left, okay? So now our polynomial is, okay, so these are all the coefficients, right? And our exponents start one less than our original polynomial, okay? So now we're starting with x cubed. So we have 1 x cubed, and I don't have any x squares, and so this would be x's, so that's -13x, and then this would be my constant. Okay, so that's what it would look like now. Okay, and it probably would help, it would be beneficial. Let's just include that, that I have 0 x squares, because we don't want to forget that, okay? We're going to make sure everybody's represented, all right? So this will keep us from misstepping later if you just go ahead and use that 0 as a placeholder, okay? So I'm checking my exponents, 3, 2, 1, okay, so we're good. All right? So now this is the polynomial that we're going to factor, okay? So now we can erase. Let me scoot this down a little. Okay, so now we got to find another number to try. We've tried 1. 1 didn't work. If 1 didn't work before, it's not going to work now. Okay, there's no sense in going back to that. We tried a 2. A 2 worked. So we can try a -1. We can either go up to the 3, or we can come back to the -1. I mean, everybody's going to try different numbers in a different sequence, but you're going to end up at the same place. Okay, so let's try a -1, okay? But these are our coefficients now that we use with synthetic division. So we've got a 1, a 0, a -13, and a -12. Okay, and then we just start over. We pull down the 1. -1 times 1 is -1. These combine to a -1. -1 times -1 is a +1. These combine to a -12. -1 times -12 is a +12. These combine to a 0, so we're good. He works. So now up here, we just factored out something else. So we're going to put x, but then we have to change the sign, remember. It's not a -1, it's going to be a +1. Okay? Hopefully everybody's going, oh yeah, I remember doing that. This is easy. Okay, so now this is what we have now. So these are the coefficients of the polynomial that we have now. And so now they're going to start with, our exponent goes down 1 every time. So now we're going to start with x squared, because this one, the last one, started with an x cubed. So now the polynomial that we have left after we factored out these two guys is x squared. This would be a -1x, so we don't have to write the 1, and a -12. Now this is a trinomial that you're very familiar with as far as factoring goes. It was what you first learned to factor, and so now we can just do it the old-fashioned way, like this, okay? So we know that our first two terms have to be x's. This tells me that my signs are different. And I need factors of 12 that subtract, okay? Because since my signs are different, they have to subtract to a -1, okay? So your factors of 12, you got 1 and 12, and 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Obviously, it's 3 and 4 because they have a difference of 1. And I need a -1, so my larger number goes with a negative sign. I know that you guys know how to do all this. Okay. So if you were to check this, we were to FOIL this really quick. Okay, first gets me there. Out is a +3, in is a -4. They combine to a -1, and our last guys multiply up to a -12. Okay, so now these two binomials can come up here and join these two. So this is what all of this big polynomial looks like factored. So now we can determine what our solutions are for x. So x equals +2, -1, +4, and -3, right? Because all of these are set up to 0, okay? So, and I know you guys remember. So if I took this and set it up to 0, that would be a +2. Okay, but you guys were very good about just being able to look at this and go, oh, it's a +2, a -1, a +4, and -3, okay? And then some of you guys are so beautifully organized that you would even take this and rearrange it and write it from least to greatest. And that just made me so happy. Okay, you didn't have to, and I didn't count it wrong if you didn't, but man, do I appreciate that kind of attention to detail. Okay, so there it is. There's the review for those bad boys. So 2 is just like 1, okay? And so you can just retrace your steps. You're going to do it all the same way. You're just going to have different numbers. You'll notice the constant at the end of number 2 is 48. So he has more factors to choose from. So when you list your possible zeros, you're going to have more numbers to choose from because 48 is bigger and it has more factors. So let's just walk through the rest of these. On number 3 and number 4, you are given just sets of coordinates, and you're asked the question, just by looking at these coordinates, is this a function or is it not a function? So hopefully you guys remember how to do that. Okay, you're just looking at your x's and you're seeing if they repeat or not. Okay, if they repeat, it's not a function. Okay, if they don't repeat, it is a function. 5 and 6, you're actually looking at graphs. You're looking at a Cartesian plane, and you're asked if it is a function or if it's not a function. And so you would do the vertical line test, okay? So if you were to throw up a vertical line on there anywhere and it hits at more than one spot, it is not a function. On 7 and 8, so these problems, hopefully you guys remember. I can't remember exactly where they were, so you'd have to do some digging. Basically, hopefully the first thing that you would notice on 7 and 8 is that you've got a fraction set up equal to a fraction, and so instantly you should think cross multiplication, okay? Cross multiply in order to clear out your fractions. But on 7 and 8, what we had to do on those is, if you remember, do the cross multiplication and solve for y, okay? Once you get y by itself, the question that determines whether or not it's a function is if y if you solve for y and you get one answer, it's a function. If you get more than one solution for y, it is not a function. And so you're going to have to solve for y. You get y by itself. So really, what you're paying attention to, if you remember, is y's exponent. Because if its exponent is even, you're going to have more than one solution. You're going to have that plus or minus thing, okay? If the exponent is odd, you will only get one solution, okay? Just a positive solution. So, but I do want to see it all worked out all the way, okay? And it'll end with, you could end on a fraction that's just complex and it still has an x in it, and that's as far as you go. But I do want to see the problem worked out all the way to where y is by itself, okay? So I want to see y equals, okay? And it could just equal a fraction. Y could equal the square root of something. Y could equal the cube root of something. It just depends on what y's exponent was, okay? So I do want to see it worked out. I don't want to just see, yes, it's a function, or no, it's a function. You have to back up your answer, okay? You have to explain, show me math-wise why it is or why it is not a function, okay? So all the way to the end. Take it all the way to the end. And on the last two, the directions say, using a calculator, find the angle. Okay, so I know I'm looking for an angle. I'm looking for a degree, so I know I have to shift on my calculator. That's the first thing that should pop into your mind. And then you have directions for rounding. Read your directions and follow them. Okay, and that is about it, I think. That went faster than I thought it would. So is there anybody that has looked over any of these problems and you're like, yeah, I don't, even after talking about it, I don't get it. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. If there are not, we're going to call it a day. So look over the review right quick. Speak now or forever hold your peace. We all good? Okay. Make sure that some of you guys in the packets that you're going to pick up on Monday also will have in it the quiz from that you turned in last that didn't get signed. Okay. So remember, you have to get your quizzes signed by your proctor. Okay. Listen, you're not going to get your grade until that quiz is signed. I'm not putting that grade in. It wasn't done on my watch. I'm not taking responsibility for this grade, okay? So until I get the adult supervisor signature, the grade isn't yours, okay? So you may see incomplete in grade link, and that probably just means that you didn't get it signed, okay? If you want your grade, get it signed. So that's a reminder to you. Especially, okay, so you're going to be turning in quiz, I think 26, to me on Monday. Please, please, please make sure that it gets signed, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to get your grade. If quiz 25 is coming back to you without a signature, if you want that grade, you better get it signed. I mean, some of you guys, you got 100 sitting, just waiting, but without a signature, and you're not going to get it, okay? And then you're picking up 2 quizzes. Please make sure that each one gets signed, okay? Just do your due diligence and get them signed, okay? Whoever is supervising you, whoever your proctor is, that signature is required, okay? A quiz grade is, it's not something I can take responsibility for because you weren't here. You weren't here under my watch doing it. So just a reminder about getting those signed, all right? So I guess that's it. So then we'll be back here Tuesday. I think that's going to be the last new thing that we're going to learn. I'm going to introduce radians to you, and then we're going to wrap it up. Like that's it. Nothing else new after Tuesday, and then the week after next, it's just a test. I think that's all. So we're wrapping it up, guys. So hang in there, and give it your all. Just these last couple of days, y'all, give it your all, okay? Have a great weekend. It's supposed to be beautiful and warm and sunny. Get outside and enjoy it, and I'll see you later.